There's a fitness coach with a PhD in exercise science getting 87 views per video. Meanwhile, a 22-year-old who just started working out is getting millions teaching beginner gains. Want to know the difference? Is the PhD is explaining mitochondrial adaptations and the 22-year-old is saying, do this to get jacked. This is the tragedy of expertise. The more you know, the worse you get at explaining it. You start using words your customers don't understand, solving problems they don't know they have, and you wonder why nobody's buying. At Media Scaling, we've generated over 8 billion views for our clients, and the hardest part isn't creating good content. That's actually pretty easy. It's getting experts to stop talking like experts. Today, I'm showing you exactly how to translate your genius into language that normal humans actually understand, because your knowledge is completely worthless if nobody knows what you're saying. Part 1, the curse of knowledge, why experts suck at teaching. See, the better you get at something, the worse you become at teaching it. It's called the curse of knowledge, and it's destroying your content. You've forgotten what it's like to not know what you know. Basic concepts feel so obvious that you just skip them entirely, use industry jargon like everyone knows what it means, you connect dots that beginners can't even see yet, and you solve step 10 problems when they're stuck on step 1. What this looks like in content is a fitness coach talking about time under tension to someone who hasn't exercised in 5 years. A business coach explaining LTV to CAC ratios to someone who just started their business. A therapist using attachment theory with someone who just wants to feel less anxious. See, everyone assumes their audience knows way more than they actually do. The expertise paradox here is the more you know, the harder it is to simplify. Complex understanding makes simple explanation feel wrong, and you worry about being too basic, so you overcomplicate. You worry about your peers judging you for the simple version, but your peers aren't buying, beginners are. The reality check is your customer is probably 5 to 10 steps behind where you actually think they are. They need kindergarten before college, and simple doesn't mean stupid because clear beats clever every time. So part 2, the 5 levels of awareness of where your audience actually is. See, most businesses are creating content for level 5 people when their audience is at level 1. So let me break down where people actually are. Level 1 is unaware. They don't even know that they have a problem. They think feeling tired all the time is normal. They think their business struggles are just how it is. So a content example of how you could speak to them would be, you may not realize this, but in the language you need to use are their everyday words with zero jargon. Then you have level 2, which is problem aware. They know something's wrong, but they don't know what. It could be, I'm always exhausted, but I don't know why. My business isn't growing, but I can't figure out the issue. So a content example of how you speak to level 2 is the real reason you're struggling is, and then for language here, you want to name their symptoms, not their solutions. Then you have level 3, which is solution aware. They know solutions exist, but they don't understand them yet. An example would be, I've heard of SEO, but have no idea what it means. Or people talk about nervous system regulation, but what is that? So the content needed to speak to this group is, here's what X actually means. And then for the language, you want to define everything and assume nothing. Then we go to level 4, which is product aware. They know you exist, but don't understand why you're different. They're thinking, I see coaches everywhere, so why you? Or there's 100 services on this, so what makes yours special? So how you speak to this audience is with content such as, here's what makes this different. And then the language here is using comparisons and contrasts that they understand. And now we get to our top level, level 5, the most aware. They know you, they trust you, and just need a reason to buy today. These people get your complex content, but they're maybe 3% of your audience. So the content needed for this audience is results and urgency. And for language, this is where you can finally use some sophistication, but notice here that I said this is about 3% of your audience. So the mistake everyone makes with this is creating all content for level 5 people, using level 5 language for level 1 problems, and then wondering why nobody engages because your expertise blinds you to where people actually are. That leads us into part 3, the transformation framework. So here's exactly how to translate your expertise into language that people actually understand. First, let's go through a jargon audit. So list every industry term that you use regularly. Then ask someone outside your industry what they think it means and watch their confused face. From there, you want to find the simplest possible replacement and then test it on a 12-year-old. So real translation examples could be optimize your conversion funnel becomes get more people to buy. Regulate your nervous system becomes calm your body down. Scale your operations becomes grow without working more. Leverage your assets becomes use what you already have. Strategic positioning becomes stand out from competitors. So the simplification process here is to write how you normally would, then circle every word over 3 syllables or jargon words and replace it with shorter words. For simplicity, also remove every comma that you can and cut sentence lengths in half. There's also grade level tests when it comes to your writing and scripting. Most newspapers write at 8th grade level, and most social media platforms perform best at 5th grade level content. Your content is probably at college level, so you can use Hemingway Editor or another FK scoring tool to check for the reading level of your content and scripts, and you really want to aim for at least grade 6 or below. By the way, if you're running a high-ticket business doing over $3 million per year and want our team to skyrocket your growth on socials, just like our client Sean Lynch, who went from 12,000 followers to 64,000 followers in 6 months, or Patrick Silva, who went from 0 to 37 followers in 90 days for his law firm, or Dan Bilzerian, who got over 300 million views in 7 months and multi-7 figures in sales for a Sigma Society program, then check out the link in the description below for more case studies and to also get your custom guarantee of 10 million to 500 million views in the first year working with us. And now let's break down part 4, the power of analogies. See, analogies are the bridge between what they know and what you're teaching. Without them, you're speaking a foreign language. Why analogies work is because they connect new information to existing knowledge, and they make abstract concepts concrete. They create those aha moments instantly that stick in your memory forever, and they make you sound smart while being simple. So what makes a great analogy? Well, start with something that everyone knows and then connect it to your complex concept. Highlight the similarity between it, make it visual if possible, and keep it under 30 seconds. So some analogy examples that work is your metabolism is like a campfire. Stop feeding it and it dies. Marketing is like dating. You can't propose on the first date. Your nervous system is like a smoke alarm. Sometimes it goes off just when there's burnt toast. Building a business is like growing a garden. You plant seeds today for harvest later. Content creation is like fishing. You need the right bait for the right fish. So how do you find your analogies? Well, ask yourself, what does this remind you of in everyday life? What would your grandma compare this to? What's the kitchen table explanation? What movie scene explains this? What childhood experience relates to this? And then you can also just plug it into ChatGPT and ask it to give you 5th grade level analogies as well. Part 5, we want to get into mental models where we give people the framework. See, people can't remember random information and they need a structure to hang it on. That's what mental models do. Why mental models matter is because they organize complex information, they make retention possible, they create a sense of urgency, they make people feel smart, and they become part of how people think. So how do you create simple mental models? We want to have maximum 3 to 5 components, and each component has a clear name. For example, in a niche like trading, KISS, or KISS, means keep it stupid simple. What's funny is that this isn't even about an original concept. It was actually invented by the Navy in 1960. You see how that's easier to remember than comparing to trading strategies like only use Fibonacci or only use this moving average. And part 6 of this is teaching through stories. Stories are the ultimate translation tool. Facts tell, stories sell. But more importantly, stories translate. They turn complex ideas into human experiences. Why stories beat explanations is because people remember stories 22 times better than facts. Stories create emotional connection, they bypass logical resistance, they make concepts real, and they're how humans naturally learn. So here's the story structure for teaching. You have a character with a relatable problem, and that's your customer, a struggle that everyone understands, which is their pain, the discovery moment, which is your solution, a transformation, which is the result, and then it ends in a lesson, which is what they can learn. So what are some story types that teach? One can be your biggest failure, that humanizes you. Others are client transformations, which prove it works, personal breakthrough, which creates connection, industry horror story, which agitates problems, and behind the scenes, which builds trust. How to make stories work is you want to keep them under 90 seconds. You want to have 1 point per story, specific details really do matter, use dialogue when possible, and then end with a clear takeaway. Then part 7 is knowing if it's working with the feedback loop. You can't guess if people understand you, and you need to test and adjust it constantly. So signs that you're still too complex are comments asking, what does that mean? Low engagement rates, people missing the point, no shares or saves, or confused DMs. Signs you're connecting are people saying things like this finally makes sense, or people explaining it to others, a high share and save rate, or people saying I never thought of it that way. All right, so here's the testing process to follow. You want to post the same concept at different sophistication levels, track which performs better, and then read every comment for confusion. You can also just have people watch it and then ask them directly, did this make sense? And then you want to adjust based on the feedback that you get. Another tip is you can also just upload your scripts or transcripts into ChatGPT and then ask it for feedback if it's at a 5th grade level, and if not, to give it back to you at the 5th grade level. Then the evolution process with this is to start simpler than you think is necessary, and you can gradually increase sophistication. Watch where engagement drops and find your sweet spot with this, and then stay there longer than comfortable. The more you can build the skill set of speaking to people at a 5th grade level, the more impact you're going to create and the more you're going to grow. Now, I want to spotlight Renee Rodriguez, who went from stuck for 2 years to getting over 100,000 followers in 4 months with us. Or Murder with My Husband podcast, who passed 230 million views within 8 months. If you're running a high ticket business doing over 3 million per year and you want us to catapult your growth on socials, fully done for you while saving you time rather than adding time on your plate and giving you a custom guarantee between 10 million to 500 million views in the first year, or we work for free, check out more results and how it works with the link in the description below. And then you're also going to be able to get your custom guarantee there. Also, if you're not already, hit that subscribe button for more game to grow your brand. And it's also a favor that really helps the channel. And with that said, I'll see you in the next one.